I was just getting the live stream going and the recording going.
Hi, Melanie. I just want to confirm the time. Are we 6:30 right now?
Right on the button.
Okay, so we're going to proceed because we do have quorum here. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nation. Covered by a Robinson-Huron Treaty, we honor and recognize their historic connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. We are grateful to be gathered here today. Nous soulignons respectueusement que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire désigné dans le traité Robinson-Huron, territoire traditionnel du peuple Anishinaabe, et particulièrement des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec cet endroit et nous apprécions leur contribution significative à nos communautés. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'être réunis ici aujourd'hui. Welcome to council meeting. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? Seeing none, we have an addendum and an agenda resolution for B1 to approve the addendum. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Chris, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhane. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on January the 18th, 2022 be approved as presented.
I do have a comment. The issue for the addendum is to move the motion that the mayor had previously submitted in November to closed session. I just want confirmation that the motion itself, since it's to discuss procedures and document previously discussed in open meeting, that it does conform to closed session meeting requirements. So I'm just asking direction either from our clerk or from our CEO. Does it conform to closed session?
Through Madam Mayor, the issue of the procedural bylaw, amendments to the procedural bylaw does not conform to closed session, but the matter of the nature of the amendment regarding communication issues between the mayor and the CAO does, as it is an HR issue.
So thank you for the information. And to resolve this long pending matter, I had agreed that it be moved to closed session. Conseiller Lise.
Okay, well, it's not that I disagree. I think j'ai vraiment des inquiétudes tant qu'à aller en caméra avec ça parce que vraiment, c'est une procédure. Puis les documents avaient été discutés publiquement. Alors, je ne voterai pas pour parce que je ne suis pas d'accord. Je ne vais pas me mettre dans le trouble. Je ne vais pas mettre personne d'autre. Mais ce que je propose, que j'ai proposé au début de la réunion du 4 janvier, j'aimerais mettre une motion sur la table qu'on remove cet item complètement. Là, il faut que ça finisse, ces choses-là, là, qu'on remove ça. Je l'avais proposé. J'ai besoin de quelqu'un pour le seconder, alors je demanderai quelqu'un qui seconde, voyons, comment tu dis ça?
Second.
Qui appuierait cette motion parce que là, sans aller c'est quelque chose parce que c'est pas, on a discuté cette motion-là, pas cette motion-là, cette procédure-là publiquement avec l'autre document, puis c'est juste une chose. Moi, mais je propose ça, puis j'ai quand même, je crois que j'ai le droit de proposer quelque chose, puis c'est juste aller un vote parce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui l'a appuyé.
Il y a un commentaire.
G? Sorry, Mr. CEO.
La demande de conseillère Sénécal est correcte, mais pas nécessairement à le bon temps. So at this point, the way you would do that would be, right now, the structure is that it's going into closed session and you would vote against it. If it is defeated if the addendum is defeated, then you can propose your motion at that point to adopt the agenda and then amend the agenda after that point. So you'd hold this vote and then you would basically decide whether you wanted to do it your way, and then that would happen. Okay?
Je peux-tu, Madame la mairesse?
Oui, conseillère Lise.
Je crois qu'encore une fois, je te dis pas que je suis pas d'accord avec ce que tu dis, mais je veux même pas aller à un vote à ça parce que c'est très clair, nos procédures à ça, que je sais qu'il y a bien des façons d'interpréter des choses. Alors, si vous voulez voter pour cette motion-là, je vais voir s'il y en a à l'entour de la table qui sont pas d'accord. Because we need to vote, but the reality, I'm proposing something that was proposed and it was refused for whatever reason. I don't know. But I mean, that's the way altogether, like it's been since when that we've been arguing with that. And I'm not in agreement of removing it either, but I will do it because we need to go on. We need to go on once and for all to leave that beyond, because we're going to get there and it's going to be. So that's,
Okay.
do I have the right to put that motion?
Okay, well, I'm just going to ask clarification procedurally. Is it incorrect if there's a mover and a seconder stating that instead of getting it to go to close, to remove it completely? Either way, we need a 2/3 vote. We need 2/3 to adopt the addendum, and we need 2/3 to remove it completely. Either way, it's the same balance as far as votes.
Mel or
I was, through you, Madam Chair, I was just going to inquire if the addendum is defeated in its entirety, the matter just goes away.
There you go. There you go.
So in conclusion, if the addendum is defeated, it means that the motion does not go to close and it would meet what is being proposed by Conseillère Lise to get it removed completely.
I don't think that's what she's saying, because
Well, I'm just
saying,
asking.
well,
Point of
Conseil-
order, can we move forward, please, Madame Mayor? Just to go to.
Yeah, Conseillère Lise, I'm just asking clarification, and Conseiller Dan, we need clarification so we can move forward. So if the addendum is defeated, it means that the motion is removed completely from the agenda. Is that correct?
do you want me to answer?
no.
Well, I want to seek, I just want
You don't want me
clarity.
to answer? Is that somebody said
No,
no?
no, Jake, you can proceed in answering. I'm
Okay,
seeking
thanks.
clarification.
Sure, no, I just heard a no. That's okay. So I think Melanie is correct. So what Councillor Senecal would like is to not have it enclosed, to deal with it in open, but not at this time. Right now, you have a revised agenda that doesn't have it on it, but you have a revised agenda that has an addendum to be added, because the discourse that we had up until the very last minute with her worship was that she'd be amenable to putting it in closed. Now, so the addendum says move it to close. If the addendum is defeated, then it's not moved to close, but it's not appearing on this agenda. So you can move forward with the agenda and you're free to introduce your notice of motion at a later date.
Conseillère Lise?
Well, I don't want it to, you know what, my God. Okay, let's vote it, because I'm not going to vote for it, but everybody else can do whatever they want.
Okay, and I just want to clarify a point.
Chris has a comment.
Yeah,
Not
okay,
going away.
Conseiller Chris?
If I may, just because I desperately want to get on with meeting, perhaps we could just defer this whole matter, and then we don't have to, we can just defer it to a later date, and we'll deal with it later, and we'll just get into our meeting. Thank you.
Wait.
Just a suggestion.
When you put in a deferral has to be adopted by a resolution. There has to be a mover and a seconder, and it has to precise a specific date. So here, unfortunately, from what I understand, is we have to deal with the addendum as presented. And for the addendum to be adopted, you need 2/3 vote. And yes, I had conveyed last Friday that I would have no objection for it to go to closed as long as it's conformed to closed session matters. But we got the clarification of what Councillor Lees was proposing. And if the motion is defeated, if the resolution is defeated, the motion does not go to closed and it's off the regular agenda. And that is the request that Councillor Lees was submitting and asking for. So we're clear?
Yeah.
Is there any further questions on this matter? And the only reason I'm doing it, it's not because I agree with it, but it's to get things rolling. So
May we have a
we're calling
recorded?
it to a vote?
May I ask a
vote?
recorded vote, Madam Mayor?
Okay,
Madam Mayor, do you want me to reread the resolution or just go immediately to the recorded vote?
probably best if it was reread to avoid any further questions, if that's okay.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on January the 18th, 2022 be approved as presented. Councillor Duhaime,
I'm approving it. I want this off the agenda and I'm approving it.
Right now, you're not if you vote for it.
if you vote for it, it's on.
If I what?
If you vote in favor, it stays on. If you vote against, it's,
Okay, well, I'll do it. As long as it's off, I'll vote that way.
So that's a nay.
You gotta,
That's a nay, Councillor Duhaime.
yeah, as long as it's off.
Councillor Fisher,
Well, sorry, now I'm confused. So I am voting yes, and I am saying the agenda as is and the addendum in closed session. So I'm a yes for that.
you're a yes to proceed.
Oh, that's-
Councillor Larrabee,
I'm a no to proceed with this motion.
Councillor Mallette,
You did 482 though. She did,
We can understand like people are
okay,
talking at the
just a
same
second
time.
here. Conseil Mallette is on mute.
Councillor Mallette,
I'm sorry, no.
Councillor Ravita,
I still need some clarification. I'm sorry.
do you wish the addendum to proceed as it is presented with the matter
Meaning-
going into closed session?
boy, did we ever screw that up.
I still don't understand. I'm
It's
sorry.
it's very simple.
Would it be-
If you approve the addendum, then there is a subject matter in closed session. If you don't approve the addendum, then the issue goes away for the time being. So certain people want it on closed session and certain people would like to have it just postponed. So by postpone, the way to postpone it with this resolution is to vote no. The way to accept it with this resolution and move it into closed session is to vote yes. So it's your choice. Either way, it works.
I think I got it. No.
Councillor Denise Seneca,
It's
Hear me?
just-
You are on mute, Conseil Denis.
My question to Jay is, can we move that to closed legally? Because we're not speaking about an individual or another person. So technically, the ombudsman told us that we can do that, but what's your guidance here?
You can, so am I heard? I can't tell the difference anymore. Yeah, hopefully you hear me, but
Yes, I
you
do.
can move it to close if it is also dealing with other matters that are of a human resources nature.
Which is not, right?
Well, it depends on what goes in. I mean, I'm not going to speak with respect to this file. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to do
No.
so.
No,
The public record is that, there was an issue with respect to, how you should handle it. And so if you want to handle it in close and discuss, we'll be out there, how I perform my duties, which is a bit of an HR issue, right?
That wasn't the motion on the table. I don't think. It wasn't a performance issue. Anyways, okay, I'm voting no. Let's get rid of this.
Councillor Lee Senecal.
Wow. You should have been off 2 weeks ago, but I'm voting against it also, so.
And Mayor Joanne Savage.
I'm going to say no to close because I'm the proponent of the motion and there was no bad faith, no discussion of individuals. It was open meeting discussions of documents.
The motion is defeated.
So in conclusion, the motion is off.
The addendum is defeated.
Okay. We move on to the resolution to adopt the agenda. Now, is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Chris, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime, whereas section 9.1.1 of the procedural bylaw sets out the format for council agendas, and whereas section 9.2 of the procedural bylaw permits council to adjust the order of the agenda by a resolution of two-thirds members present, and whereas council agrees to amend the order of the agenda for January the 18th, 2022, in order to address matters impacting municipal operations and residents of the municipality, be it therefore resolved that the order of the January 18th, 2022 agenda be amended, and be it further resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on January 28th or January 18th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Are there any questions to this resolution? Any objections? Hearing none, adopted. We move on to delegation and petition, délégation et pétition. And amongst us, we have a guest who we've seen a few times, but never had the opportunity to hear his delegation to council, Mr. Dave Lewington. And the topic of the presentation has to do with the vaccination policy. So Dave, I'll pass it to you to do the presentation to members of council, and after we'll open the floor if there's any questions or clarification that's required. Welcome. Bienvenue.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, and West Nipissing residents that are watching this evening at home. Thanks for allowing me to bring forward some points on the proposed vaccination policy. I appreciate the time and the effort considering the situation. I will post a transcript of what I'm about to say at letlifeliveontario.com afterwards, and on the Facebook page for that as well too. And I'm here tonight primarily because I feel there were many issues that were not considered or discussed by council at the previous meeting when the vaccination policy was discussed at committee. For example, council did not ask how many West Nipissing staff would actually be affected by that policy. And I would hope that council would be concerned about whether or not it would affect actually getting the work of the municipality completed. For example, how many snowplow operators could we lose? And is council prepared to have about 15% of our roads not plowed this winter if the same percentage of snowplow operators are unvaxxed as what we have in the North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit region? In a small community like ours, losing even 1 or 2 snowplow operators could be a big deal. I just question how many municipal services like that we might be sacrificing. Will West Nipissing hire back fired staff members when this policy ends? Or maybe a better question, if those workers are fired, will they even want to be rehired if they were let go for that reason? Are you aware that vaccinated people can still catch and spread the virus? I think we all know this. And if you weren't aware, since Christmas Eve, vaccinated people have actually been testing positive for COVID at a higher rate per capita than unvaccinated people. And if you're not clear on what that means, we can talk about that after. But that's an important point for now. So the proposed vaccination policy states that employees must get the full course of vaccines, including recommended boosters. Now that the recommendation is for everyone over 18 to have a booster, and anyone considered to be immunocompromised is supposed to have a fourth shot. So considering that, should all staff and counselors who don't get their third shot lose their livelihoods or their positions? And should any immunocompromised staff, counselors, or volunteers also lose their positions if they don't have their fourth shot? And even Ontario recently announced a whole bunch of myocarditis, which is a heart issue, complications that affect young males especially, and more so on the second dose. So the question becomes, should we fire an 18-year-old who chose to get just one dose last month because of their particular health concern, but allow, for example, a 60-year-old staff person to keep working if their last shot was over 6 months ago? And the reason I bring these points up is because I'm saying that this policy becomes a logistical nightmare to follow, as well as for staff to monitor and to enforce in an equitable manner. Is there an end date to this policy? Will it go on forever? Will it apply to other vaccines or other health-based decisions? There are now new antiviral treatments that are being approved that will give people another option that may work better or as good as the vaccines. So will a policy be required to demand that any staff or counselors that get COVID are treated with this antiviral treatment? Again, because the policy sets a precedent, I think we want to put a lot of thought into whether we approve that or not. Is council aware that immediately following the library board's implementation of a vaccine mandate, that a volunteer member of the board resigned because of that policy? I'm asking that you please pause and think about what the right thing is to do with this policy, not what the popular thing is to do. Imagine the frustration and the grief that you are going to cause volunteer boards over this policy who have to turn away longstanding volunteers from their meetings or activities. Do you really want to be responsible for the devastation that you can impose upon those volunteers by reducing their pool of people by 15%? By declaring that counselors must be vaccinated and included in this policy, it could be argued that the current group of counselors is putting up a barrier to any potential challengers to council positions. A West Nipissing voter will think twice about voting for any candidate that will not be allowed to do his or her job in the same way as other candidates. It's very discriminatory and anti-competitive with regards to the municipal democratic process. Has council received any legal advice specific to that issue? And at this point, I've had to change what I had planned to say several times over the last few weeks because recommendations from public health keep changing regarding whether it's 2 shots, a booster, or soon to be a 4th shot. So here's the way I've tried to focus on the conundrum. Should each of you as counselors be barred from your position as of the next council meeting if you have failed to get a booster shot by then? Or if a 4th booster shot is recommended for your situation, or if it's been more than 2 months since your last booster? Do you see how that policy can be used to discriminate against one counselor or another, either on purpose or by accident? Why should you penalize the residents of one ward by disqualifying their representative from actually representing them? I would like to request that when you do vote on this policy later tonight, that it's a recorded vote. I believe that history will judge these policies as the worst government-led discrimination of our era. And I want to force each and every one of you to personally think about this before you vote on that policy. Do you want to be on the record as someone who went along with what was popular? Or do you want to stand up for what was right? And in closing, with the utmost respect and seriousness, I urge council to defeat the policy. I've outlined many practical considerations the council has not considered. And if we learned anything about the reaction to COVID-19 policies, it is that unintended consequences are a real thing. Councillors, please put some thought into how you felt about the recent turmoil on council, but relate it to this issue. I understand that each side feels like the other side has bullied them. Now put yourselves into the shoes of an unvaccinated person and think about how you would feel if you had your civil liberties restricted like never before in this era, and you were fired from your job for a personal health choice that you made. Council actually has a very rare opportunity here to make a policy decision with the benefit of hindsight. You know that policies like this have not been effective. You know that both vaccinated and unvaccinated people can get COVID and can spread COVID. You can choose not to discriminate rather against citizens because you know this policy does not provide the outcome hoped for when other municipalities implemented similar policies earlier on. How refreshing it would be if we could witness a council that says, we don't have all the answers, okay? We know that we don't have all the answers. We don't have the perfect solutions, but we will not discriminate against a group of citizens and turn them into scapegoats. And I ask you, does it really serve the greater good or the public interest for you to deny rights and freedoms to a minority? Can you think of any time in history when that has actually ended well? Jack Layton wrote what is now a very famous letter just prior to his passing. In that letter, he said, "Love is better than anger. Hope is better than fear. Optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world." Madam Mayor and councillors, I beg you, don't be angry and fearful, but instead choose to be full of love and optimism. Defeat this discriminatory vaccination policy and show your fellow citizens that you do have the capacity for love and optimism, and that will allow each and every citizen to make the best choice for their own individual situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowington. I'm just going to open the floor and see if there's any comments or any questions from members of council. Conseiller Leo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly don't agree with you, Mr. Lewington. I respect your views, whatever you want to do with your body. But I had cancer. I took chemo, and you know, I had to get sick to get better. And science says so. So I really don't agree with you, and I will vote for the policy for vaccination. Thank you.
Conseiller Denis.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Livingston. There's a few things that you should know, and you do know, is that we are following the advice of the medical experts in our health unit. That's the recommendation, and it's not a private issue. It's a common issue for the for the best of all the common, of all the people. Some may be strong enough to withstand it, but if I don't have my vaccine and I interact with the public and I give them the COVID, I don't think that's fair to them either. So for that reason, I would like to say that I don't agree with you on that. And my second point is we are bound by the Ministry of Labor will say we must do everything we must take every precaution necessary to protect the health and safety of our workers. And that's our main goal here, to protect our workers and to protect the public. And that you can't satisfy everybody, you can't please everybody, but the stats are there that it's even if you have your vaccine, you might get sick, but it won't be as bad. And the transmission rate is a lot less. So I think, saying that, I would vote that we continue with this policy. Thank you. And you have a question or an answer or comment? Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Denis. I don't think it's a debate, but if there's any additional information that you wanted to answer, Mr. Lewington?
What I wanted to clarify is that since Christmas Eve, vaccinated people are testing positive at a higher rate proportionally for COVID than unvaccinated. And if you're unsure of that, check out the Ontario government's website on the reporting. The cases per 100,000 are actually running higher. And it is, so it's showing that the transmission is not any different or is slightly worse among the vaccinated.
Okay, thank you. Conseil Chris, Conseil Alice.
I think David did make a couple of good points, and it is a moving target, and antivirals are coming, and I do agree with that. And I also agree that we might one day we'll have to look at scrapping this the bylaw altogether over time as the sands shift, so to speak. Don't really want to do this, but I guess I'm gonna. I'm pretty sure I'm suffering with COVID right now, and pneumonia almost killed me a few years ago. And if I wasn't vaccinated, I don't know how sick I'd be right now. So, on my own conscience, and I realize we don't usually do this process, and we should be discussing it next week, but because this policy is on the agenda tonight, I guess we're kind of doubling it up. So I do agree with some of what David's saying, but I'm going to vote for this policy. Thank you.
Conseil Alice, Conseil Dan.
I want to start by thanking you, Dave. I like the way you talk. You're very calm and you're very clear and you're a good speaker. So thank you very much. There is point, and I agree with you with that people should have the choice. But when we look at our children, if we wanted them to attend school, they need to have the booster, and that's a law that it's been that's a law that has been in place forever. Like, and there's a list of booster that's available for the kid, and they need to take. I want to talk about, you're right, that since December, most people that's getting it are vaccinated for the simple fact that it's a very contagious, and the majority of the population right now are vaccinated, and they are still in contact with the COVID or whatever they call it. Okay, you're talking about the majority can get it, but you're not talking about the majority of people that's getting it that have health issue and that are dying are the ones that don't have the vaccine, and that's a fact also. I mean, I'm for one, I very, very agree with the right and the freedom that we have as Canadian. I'm very, very proud of that, but there is things that need to be done to protect our citizen. And that's one of them. I can understand if people have health issue, if it's based on a religion, I support that 100%. But I don't think that, it's a choice. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I have a granddaughter, and I know two people right now with children, 2 years and 4 years, that are in intensive care because they're getting it. My granddaughter doesn't have the vaccine, and I have my 3 booster, and I know I can get it. So by all means right now, I'm staying in the house to be able to protect that kid, and the parent have their booster too. So the reality is, David, I understand what you're saying, and I respect your opinion. But when we look at the whole picture, one, we are here as a counselor to protect our worker, and it's part of the health and safety. And if you look at other organizations that people are trying to make whatever you call it against the union, well, they won't fight it because it's not part of it. So I feel for people, and a policy, David, it's not forever. So if that thing, like what happened 100 years ago, that 2 million die in that time, that maybe 2 million would not have died if they would have the vaccine. It's gone, that thing, that virus that I think it was calling, what do you call it? Like la grippe espagnole en français. I don't know if you say that in English. Okay. The reality, David, we're not going to be there. Well, we might be there next time around. That's not a given that we're not going to be there. I don't know if I would vote for me right now, what's happening, but the reality, I might be here next time. And if that thing is gone, and that they were able to control the virus to a point, the same as the polio, that you don't see it, that's not engraved in stone, that policy. That can be amended. That can be, yes, people might lose their job. But if you look at the amount of people in West Nipissing that fully vaccinated, they not all work for the West Nipissing for sure. They work for Chateau, they work for the hospital, they work anywhere, which right now, pretty soon they will have a choice. It's a protection. You're talking about love. Well, I love my friend. I love my granddaughter. I love the people that I know that they have health unit, that they could die if they're getting it. I respect people, but I have to vote for that policy. And Dave, I really appreciate, because you're well spoken. You know, you can say what you have to say, and I don't, that's your opinion, and I do respect that. But I mean, and hopefully you'll be able to respect ours too. You don't have to agree. And I will not hold that against you, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Conseiller Lise, Conseiller Dan, and Conseiller Rowley. You are on mute, Conseiller Dan.
Oh, boy. Thank you for your presentation. And I disagree with what you basically stated. And we do have the medical profession providing us with guidance. And that there's one comment that you made, that there was more people that were catching COVID that were vaccinated. Well, yeah, I agree with you, but proportionately, there's more vaccinated people than not. So, of course, the figures are not comparable. You know, it's unbelievable in the sense that, you know, that it's democracy is great in the sense that you can come and tell us this, and we can disagree with you, but we can still make our own opinions. And I will support the policy that's presented to us.
Thank you, Conseiller Rowley.
Thank you. Talk about a subject that unites council. We're all on the same page here. I agree with every comment that was made from councillors around the table. And it is true what Councillor Dan said, over 80%, and now it's even more, of vaccinated compared to unvaccinated. So yes, you'll have probably more cases, but the comparison, you can't compare it. And no, I totally agree. Councillor Denis said it right. We have to protect our employees. So I do have to support this policy. But I do agree that you have rights, but at the end of the day, the protection of the citizen outweigh this. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Yvon?
Thank you, Dave Langton, for your presentation. You mentioned a few things, that don't deny the rights and freedom, and I stand through with that. But in essence, throughout this whole ordeal, when it first started, there was the act of fear amongst many people in this country and the world, as to what the outcome would have been if it would have kept on going without a vaccine. The vaccine has certainly made it a little less strenuous on many people because they had something to go to and hopefully correct the situation. And it's been over a year now that the vaccine has been given out. And I agree, there's a lot of times that when you get a needle, you're not sure what the outcome is going to be. It affects others more the others than some. And unfortunately, from what we've seen, the results are not as bad as we thought. So I'm not saying that what we're doing during the closure because of the vaccine is proper. We're mingling. We're doing things that will make us catch the vaccine or catch the virus. But nevertheless, people are somewhat a little, I guess, tired of being closed up, and they're looking for an avenue to get rid of their fear and then get a vaccine or something so that it would correct this issue. Hopefully Dave, I hope it does correct the issue. And yes, we did question the idea about putting a policy in place that would maybe have some people lose their job. And we asked that question many times, and it's not something that we wanted to happen. And I don't think it affected us in West Nipissing as much as others with our workforce. But and I'll never deny you don't have a right, Dave. You always have that right and your freedom. And I thank you very much again for that presentation.
So I want to thank each member of council for providing their views pertaining to the presentation, but I would really want to extend a warm thank you to Mr. Lewington for coming forward to council, for being patient to be able to provide this presentation to council. He's been hoping to have presented the subject matter for quite a few weeks now. And even last year, 2021, I personally feel, and this is a personal opinion, that it's very unfortunate that the provincial government has not adopted a policy that would be standardized across the province within the various sectors that would be uniform. Because here we are faced with a situation which at the beginning and still is a crisis for various factors. And there's discrepancies on how this is being dealt with amongst, as an example, we can look at municipalities. We've got neighboring municipalities that have not endorsed and refused to endorse a vaccination policy. And then there are others that do desire to do so. But I think in the bottom of my heart is to look after the well-being of our people and the well-being of our community. But the biggest fear right now and the biggest concern is making sure that our workforce is healthy to be able to do their work. And that's what I've been hearing in the news right now, that it doesn't matter where you are, whether hospitals, but the health-related field, there's alarming statistical information about ill individuals that cannot go to work. And I know that through the emergency control group meetings that we've had, we're not prone to that exemption. We had to notice to the public that they could expect maybe a longer time frame to be able to address their roads, because we do have people that are ill. But I really want to thank you, because you do bring a lot of food for thought, and everyone is entitled to opinions. My only regret with all of this, how things have proceeded, is the ill feeling it has created amongst our citizens and how it has created citizens to butt head. And that's unfortunate, but it's something that's the reality that we're faced with. You requested that a recorded vote be taken at the time when the vaccination policy is being addressed. And also there were a few issues that you identified pertaining to vaccination 1, 2, relevant boosters. I believe that our vaccination policy does address that, but we can ask that question once we get to it. And also if there's any other questions from members of council. But on that note, thank you. And it's on the agenda under new business. And at that time, I'll make sure that a recorded vote is requested. No further comments or questions? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewington.
Thank you, David.
Have a good evening, and unfortunately for me, you're welcome for Uniting Council.
Thumbs up. Thank you. OK, on procède avec la prochaine items qui est the receipt of a petition for the Cache Bay Trailer Park replacement of park operator. So we receive the petition. I know it's been on the agenda, but if we follow due course as per procedures, it means that we will be discussing this petition at our next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, Conseil Alice?
May I add that when we have the discussion, there's a part that will have to be in closed camera? Monsieur
I
Barbeau,
believe-
because of an individual, okay?
Okay, we'll have a look at the specifics of what you're requesting. And if it meets closed session guidelines, for sure. If not, we'll address it in a certain way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I did notice that the subject matter, the way it was identified on this agenda is different than prior agendas, because prior agendas, it also talked about eviction. And I just want to make sure that we have the petition for the actual park, Cache Bay Trailer Park maintenance issue. And we do have a separate issue which has to deal with eviction.
The issue of the eviction has been rectified, and the individuals involved, the people who are being evicted, that has been rectified, and that was rectified a long time ago with a conversation with the operator, myself, and the Director of Community Services. So it's no longer relevant, and we only put what was relevant on it. So I'm happy to inform you that at least that has been resolved.
Okay, good.
Okay, Conseil Alice?
Well, I thank you, Jay, Monsieur Barbeau, for this clarification, but I really don't think it's irrelevant though, because the way that it was done, so I would like to discuss it. I'm glad that you intervened and that you were able to, but I mean, it doesn't make it right. So
Sure.
I think we need, pardon
Sure.
me?
Sure. I think that your issue and the eviction and all of that could be covered when we discuss the entire issue with the petition.
Yeah.
Because obviously with the petition, there's some reasons around it. So there will be some discussions.
Yeah.
And if there's anything sensitive that we feel is worthy of closed session, certainly we'll bring it there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Conseil Broley?
That's okay. My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we move on to the regular part of the council meeting. As you know, yeah, we move on to planning. Is there a mover and a seconder for D1 to amend the zoning bylaw for 12 Principal Street in Verner? Conseil Chris, Conseil Yvon?
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-01 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone lands located at 12 Price Bow East in Verner from C1 General Commercial to R3-4 Residential 3 Exception Zone 4 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Are there any questions? Are there any objections? Hearing none, carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder for the resolution to grant the draft plan subdivision approval, Deer Lake Road. Conseil Yvon, Conseil Rowley.
It is moved by Councillor Deneen and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas a public meeting was held on October the 18th, 2021 for a draft plan approval of a plan of subdivision located on Deer Lake Road in Verner, municipality of West Nipissing, and more particularly described as part of the north half of Lot 6, Concession 1 in the township of Hugo for lands owned by Geral and Zian Gagnon. And whereas written and public submissions were made and considered by the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee on October the 18th, and whereas the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee has recommended to Council for the West Nipissing Municipality that the draft plan be approved subject to conditions, be it therefore resolved that the draft plan of subdivision be granted for subdivision application number SUBD 2021-04 made by Geral and Zian Gagnon for a plan of subdivision located on Deer Lake Road in Verner, more particularly described as part of the north half of Lot 6, Concession 1 in the township of Hugo.
Are there any questions or comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopted. Is there a mover and a seconder to acquire lands from 2569 189 Ontario Limited for municipal purposes? Conseil Chris. I need a seconder. Conseil Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-02 being a bylaw to authorize the acquisition of certain lands from 2569189 Ontario Limited situated on Dovercourt Road in Sturgeon Falls shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Question before proceeding to a vote. Does it mean that once we acquire the land that staff can proceed with the turnaround as proposed? Or does it wait till the spring before the road can be reopened?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to defer the answer to that question to our Manager of Public Works, who's more knowledgeable about the timing of projects than I.
Right, through you, Madam Chair, I would strongly recommend waiting until the spring to, we're going to have to remove the aggregates from the existing turnaround and move them to the far end and to achieve compaction. And it's just better planning to wait till the spring.
Okay, thank you. Conseil Lise? You are on mute, Conseil Lise. You are still on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Wait.
Okay, well, I understand, Monsieur Remillard, that in the winter time, but I think the winter time is a lot more dangerous for something to happen at that corner with the ice and everything that it is in the summertime, because summertime, if the ditch are maintained, at least you can look on both sides and you have time to stop. But I mean, it is very dangerous. And I mean, I don't know, like there's a lot of construction going on winter. It might be a little bit harder, but I think, and if we have a lot of snow, where is the one on Toronto? They don't have any place to put their snow, and it's big bank of snow. It is very dangerous. And I think it's not just protecting the resident of Dovercourt. I think it's to protect also the resident of Toronto Street. So I will support obviously the purchase, but I need to say that comment because I mean, it's amazing that there's people that doesn't even want to go out of their house right now, because you have to realize that we are mostly, I think the youngest couple is 30 and there's only one couple. And I mean, the rest is most retiring and some in their 80 that doesn't want to drive anymore because they are afraid. And I know some of them has been speaking to other residents and they wanted to do a petition. That's when I found out that, everything was solved and they were doing that. So I'm very glad to hear that. But I would definitely like to see this done this winter for major safety issue. That's my thought, but I will support obviously the purchase of the lot.
Okay, so
Thank you.
this evening, we're dealing with the acquisition of the property.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to request that the safety concern be discussed either at our next committee meeting under Public Works or Environment or Public Safety?
I would agree.
Would that be fair? This
Yes.
way we can have the proposed timelines and then to have that discussion at that time. Councilor Rowley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have to agree with our manager, Monsieur Ramial, on this issue. The construction in the wintertime for work like this is, to me, does not
Okay.
make sense. I know we want it, but it doesn't make sense. It has to
But
be.
yeah, but just a point of clarification, like we're not discussing the timeline of the project, unfortunately, because otherwise we'll all contribute our 5 cents to that. We're dealing with the land acquisition. I'm asking staff, is it fair to that, there's concerns, comments, timelines, if this can be added to a next committee, either Public Works or protection to people and property. And then we can have that discussion pertaining to timelines, project, when, and safety. Okay? So this evening, we're dealing with the acquisition, and then we can speak at our next committee meeting pertaining to safety issues.
Okay.
So coming back to the resolution to acquire that parcel of land. No objection? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopted.
Hallelujah.
Need a mover and a seconder for D4 to amend the zoning bylaw for 12051A Highway 17. Mover, Conseiller Chris, seconder, Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-03 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located at 12051A Highway 17 from RU Rural to C2 Highway Commercial shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any questions? Aucune question? Any objections? Hearing none, carried, adopted. D5 to amend a zoning bylaw, mover and a seconder. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denis Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-04 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located on Dominion Crescent in Sturgeon Falls from R1 Residential 1 to R23 Residential 2 Exception Zone 3 shall come into force and take effect when the date is passed.
Any questions, comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? Conseiller Lise? You're on mute.
Maybe, Madam Clerk, you can just briefly, because I'm trying to see the difference between the zoning and I don't have it in front of me. So just.
Okay, I'll just ask the clerk.
I'm not sure what the question is, but currently the property is zoned residential 1, which only permits a single family dwelling. What is being proposed is to build a duplex on this property.
Okay, that's exactly what I was asking. Yeah, thank you very much, Madam.
You're welcome.
Down.
No further questions? Hearing no objections, carried, adopted. We move on to the next resolution. A mover and a seconder. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denis Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. We have resolved that bylaw number 2022-13 being bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located at 13117 Highway 17 in Sturgeon Falls from RR Rural Residential to RR-4 Rural Residential Exception Zone 4 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any questions? Aucune question? Any objections? Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder for the tile drainage loan application, Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duham and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the application for a tile loan made under the Drainage Act made by Raymond Pellerin for property described as the part of the east half of Lot 8, Concession 3, being parcel 6161 in the township of Kirkpatrick, for property in the amount of 50,000 be accepted pending financing by the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs.
Any questions or comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder for the next resolution, Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duham and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-14 being a bylaw imposing special annual drainage rates upon lands in which in respect of which money is borrowed under the Tile Drainage Act application made by Raymond Pellerin for the east part of Lot 8, Concession 3 in the township of Kirkpatrick in the municipality of West Nipissing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? Questions? None? Carried, adopté. We move on to new business, les affaires nouvelles. A mover and a seconder to be able to authorize borrowing to meet current expenditures. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duham. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-11, being a bylaw to borrow money to meet current expenditures, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
And correct me if I'm wrong, our Director of Corporate Services, but this is a standard policy that we normally adopt. So this way, until we can set a budget and be able to collect monies for the coffers of the municipality.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Are there any further questions or points of clarification required? None? Any objections? None? Carried, adopté. The next one, mover and a seconder, authorize the levy of interim tax installments. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Dan.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Avita. Be it resolved that the bylaw number 2022-12 being a bylaw to levy interim taxes for the year 2022 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
So here again, just a quick summary. It's a standard policy resolution that we adopt. Basically, we're going to start collecting money, but we're not going to be collecting the entire money until we have set what the budget is going to be.
That's it again. You've got it.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? None? Any objections? None? Carried, adopté. The bylaw to authorize a voting method for a 2022 municipal election. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Denis.
I have a question. I want to propose something. Do I have to, when you do this, will I be able to put a recommendation on the table?
Yeah. First of all, we need the resolution to be read.
Okay.
Then we discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-05 being a bylaw to authorize vote by mail for the 2022 municipal election in the West Nipissing municipality shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions, comments, Conseiller Lise?
Well, I do. I was wondering if we could defer that and because like the ministry was very strong when they say that we need to replace, to do everything we can to replace the seat, the vacant seat. And since there might be some opportunity there to try to maybe have our meeting as fast as possible to discuss that. And that might be a possibility that I would personally change my mind on that one if he gets there, because I think that could be a solution to, anyways, I don't want to go into detail.
Okay,
Yes,
so what I hear is a request to defer. Before looking at the request for deferral, I need to ask a question. What will be the effect as far as timeline if this resolution is deferred?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're already getting very tight
Can't
to
be deferred.
obtain suppliers and whatnot. This should have been done in December. So we need to put out requests for proposal for suppliers for ballots and equipment. And the
Okay.
longer, this is for the actual municipal election.
Well, more specifically, legislatively, this resolution needed to be passed in 2021. So we're behind. So there, legislatively, it isn't possible. It needs to be dealt with.
Okay, so what I hear is because we're already behind with the adoption of the resolution, further delaying the resolution to our next meeting would create, does it create any hardship to be able to move forward with the upcoming election?
Well, you're legally non-compliant right now by not having adopted that resolution prior to December 31st, 2021. And so, I don't think it's good form to delay it. This is an outcome of a decision that was taken by council at a committee level, and this was a ratifying resolution, as I understand it. So
Okay.
I don't know that the two to also to speak to, not to argue to. I think the discussion about filling a vacancy and how you hold the election are two separate issues. They wouldn't be able to intertwine those anyway.
Councillor Lise?
okay, so my question is then, I understand what you're saying, and we need to take the vote tonight, but when we came, if we discuss that, is it possible to use that method? To see,
To use, pardon me,
to use
for a by-election?
let's say we all agree for the second time in a couple of months, because we agree on something tonight,
Mhm.
and that we agree that we need to replace, and
Yes.
that we do a by-election, and that
Yes.
we say, can we use that way to do it to see if it's working, so it can be applied for the next election? We
Yes,
too late?
Yeah, you'd be too late, but unfortunately, or to partially answer your question, you could use this method if you did hold a by-election. So there'd be that. Sorry, in my mind is COVID fuzzy. So you could do that, or you can hold any other method and test it for future. But you are a little bit late, Councillor Lees, and in fact, the by-election, you might have timeline issues as well with that, because a by-election has to be held before March 31st of this year. At that point, otherwise you'd have to appoint. So it's so no, basically. Sorry.
Okay, what can happen before March? We've got 3 months, almost 2 months and a half.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we got the explanation why this motion cannot be deferred.
Okay.
And that's duly noted. Are there any other questions or comments? None? Carried. Adoptee. Okay, approval of the vaccination policy. Out of courtesy to Mr. Lewington's presentation, I did inform Mr. Lewington that a requested recorded vote would be requested for the vaccination policy. I'm just going to ask our Director of Corporate Services, there were issues pertaining to subsequent vaccination, i.e. boosters. If that's addressed in the policy, I believe it is, but I'll just ask that question. And there was also the question, is it an impediment for volunteers and for volunteers or elected officials to be excluded in coming forward with the municipality as a volunteer? are coming forward as elected officials in the upcoming election. That was an issue that was brought up. So I'll just pass it on to our Director of Corporate Services if responses could be provided to those matters.
Sure. Yes, you are correct that the boosters are addressed in the policy. And again, just sort of following public health recommendations and guidance in developing these policies, and that the continued booster to ensure that our workforce stays safe while they're dealing with each other and the public has been included in that. The policy does sort of speak very broadly of sort of covering everyone who comes in and out of the municipality. But with all policies and with the consequences, I remember we had this discussion at the time we were developing the policy about the may and shall and what the possible ramifications are and how the policy is applied. And so certainly, we can't fire counselors. Certainly there are other ways for counselors to work that don't have them right side by side with their workforce and things like that makes it a different policy. That certainly, boards and how they apply, boards do their own. I'm not going to say it's an impediment, but it is a consideration when dealing with volunteers and how volunteers work together. And it's different from volunteers that are responding to fire calls than volunteers who are, able to do a virtual meeting and don't ever have to interact with people. So there are ways of, to address those concerns through the policy itself as well.
Are there any other questions or comments, Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Alice?
So I just want to say that actually, when Mr. Lewinson was talking about councillors being included, I followed his logic and I actually understand what he was saying. Mr. Lewinson, for example, if he wanted to run for the Verna seat or Levine or wherever he is in the next election, he seems to say that this would preclude him, and I don't feel that's right. But I do feel it's a double-edged sword, because I don't think we should be putting this policy in place and saying that we the councillors are exempt for that reason. So, but I must admit that piece of his argument made sense to me. Thank you.
Are you proposing a change, Conseiller Chris?
No, I'm not. I'm not
okay.
proposing. I'm just highlighting the fact that it did make a lot of sense to me. I don't know what to do with it. It did.
Okay. No, I just want to clarify. Conseiller Alice, Conseiller Dan.
Well, on the same page also, like and volunteer, they work with our worker, and we said that we want to protect our workers. So I mean, if you look at Au Chateau, for example, volunteer or caregiver even have, and any visitor now have to have their vaccine. So if we want to stick to the fact that this policy is to protect people, it's got to be across the board. And don't forget that we're receiving a pay to be here. So we're not an employee, but we're paid to be sitting here. And I mean, we're not always going to be, it's impossible to be always in camera. And but that's my stand is the same as Conseiller Fisher. At this point of time, it's got any volunteer, or I don't like to do it, but we got to do it, because the main reason is to protect our employer. So, Councillor, what
Conseiller Dan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things we should be prepared to is not only to endorse the policy, we should show leadership and commit ourselves all around the table to get fully vaccinated with the boosters and everything else. I think that the public is looking for leadership, and they're asking us to lead. And on this case, I think that we should show our total commitment for this.
Oh, I am.
Okay, I do have one question. If the provincial, well, we all know that things have been evolving very quickly, with legislation. So if legislation does change tomorrow pertaining to the provincial government imposing standardized legislation, does our policy become null and void at that time? That's one question.
So with cases of municipal, or sorry, provincial legislation, you always look at what the legislation is and how it relates to the policy that either exists or that you're developing. So certainly we would look to the guidance of a provincial legislation. If we found that our policy had better protections, council may choose to continue with the policy rather than to drop to a lower protection. But absolutely, if the province does come up with some type of standardized policy, we just run that up against what we already have in place and see where we land.
Okay, thank you. And one final question, and maybe a suggestion, is it possible, and what I recommend is measurable or not measurable, but updates to council pertaining to the impact of the policy. I sit on other boards where we adopted vaccination policy, but we frequently do get updates on the percentage of vaccination amongst the staff and volunteers, and what was the impact, if there was anyone that was let go because they would not comply. So what are the measurables by adopting this policy for council to be updated? Is there anything that can be proposed within the policy that council is updated on a policy that we vote on?
I don't know if it needs to be incorporated within the policy, but certainly we can come back to council once the policy is in place and we've actually got that data and numbers for you. I have anecdotally idea of where things are, but we can certainly come back and say, yes, that we've got 97% vaccinated, or that we've got 3 holdouts, or you've seen that in the news from other municipalities. We certainly can provide updates to council.
Okay. Conseillers?
Well, it just, do you have an ID? Like nobody's talking, not maybe a very firm number, but I mean.
I would say very few, and around 97% is probably accurate. So we're talking about a few people in various areas, and that's all that we would disclose. But we have been monitoring who is vaccinated, who isn't vaccinated. We have been through Ms. Craddock's leadership in taking the appropriate steps to ensure the appropriate measures in the workplace have been taken care of, and so on. So yes, we to answer the mayor's question, given the sensitivity of this, we'd be happy to provide a report statistically once the policy is implemented.
Thank you. Conseiller Chris?
So I just as an aside, so this is not unique, this mandating of vaccinations, and so smallpox, which is sort of no longer with us, was mandated in various countries and throughout the world, and I believe in even polio. So people shouldn't think that this is strange and a unique situation. It's happened in the past. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Conseillers?
Well, I was reading, but did we pass? I don't remember voting on the election thing. I know there was that they were recommendation, but I don't think we vote on it. Mel? Madame, sorry, I apologize, Madame Cham.
I heard the word carried. I wasn't honestly paying super close attention. I heard the mayor say carried.
I don't remember voting.
We have.
No,
we have?
Yes.
Okay.
So coming back to the vaccination policy, so we're told we're going to get a statistical report of the impact of the policy to council pertaining to percentage and so on and so on. Are there any further questions pertaining to the content of this policy? I hear none. And I'm going to pass it on to the clerk, requesting a recorded vote for the vaccination policy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to need a new mover and a seconder to begin.
Okay, Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Lise.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Whereas at a meeting held on November the 2nd, 2021, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality reviewed the vaccination policy. Be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the vaccination policy, which shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. And be it further resolved that the vaccination policy shall become part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual. Councillor Duhaime,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
Yes.
Councillor Larrabee,
Yes.
Councillor Mallette,
Yes.
Councillor Rovita,
Yes.
Councillor Denis Senecal,
Yes.
Councillor Lee Senecal,
Yes.
Mayor Joanne Savage.
Yes.
It is carried.
We move on to the award for the purchase of a loader. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Rowley.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas quotations were requested for the purchase of a new loader by the West Nipissing Public Works Department, which quotations were opened on the 10th of November 2021. Whereas 3 quotations were received, and whereas the quotations have been reviewed by the Director of Corporate Services and the Manager of Public Works, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best price meeting all specifications, and whereas Council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the quotation for the purchase of a new loader by the West Nipissing Public Works Department be awarded to Brent Tractor, having submitted a quotation of $214,900 plus harmonized sales tax, meeting all specifications.
Okay, point of clarification. I believe we had that discussion quite a few months ago. It's to replace a piece of equipment that was required to provide winter services. If it wasn't replaced, it would have an impact on services to residents. And unfortunately, the actual equipment necessitated a large sum of money as far as repairs. Would that be correct? I'm just trying to refresh everyone's memory here. I'll ask our Manager of Public Works.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the estimated repairs on the 2007 case loader were substantial and brought to council. Just to clarify, Brent Tractor, the model supplied is a 624P John Deere loader.
Okay. And subsequent to that, are there any questions pertaining to this resolution from members of council? Aucune question. May I ask, since there's no questions from the floor, to you, to our Manager of Public Works, what did we do with the equipment that necessitated repairs and not having received the new equipment? So how did it affect the level of service to our residents pertaining to winter maintenance?
I'd like to respond to that.
So through you, Madam Chair, the piece of equipment has been received since last week. In the request for quotation process, we did include the old loader as a trade. So we did receive trade value for the old loader.
Okay, so am I right to assume that it's a formality to adopt this resolution since the equipment is already in the Public Works yard?
I wouldn't say it's a formality, Madam Mayor. We stretched and tried to find a favorable relationship with the supplier until we can get together, and we thank you for being here and to formalize it now. But I believe, formalizing it is good. We had the understanding with our relationships with our supplier that we would move forward, and that it was going to be favorable. So we obviously knew what council's wish was when we presented it originally.
Conseiller Yvon?
Madam Mayor, the condition of the 2007 loader was not very favorable. It was in dire need to be changed. We were generally concerned about the safety aspect of the machine, and because now that we're using our snow blower, to give you an example, it's fairly heavy for the machine to pull along, and the 2007 loader was not adequate enough because of its age and usage, and we were deeply concerned with the situation of that machine, so that we talked about it, leasing the machine for the time being till we purchase a new one. So that was one of the reasons why it's like on a lease of some kind. It's in lieu of payment, but it's working that way. And then we were able to use the machine safely with no conditions at all involved. And that was one of the reasons why the machine was in the yard. It's only been a week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just need clarification here, because I'm sure some other members may or may not. Have we presently been leasing the equipment, or did we purchase the equipment?
So I had the discussion, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. I had the discussion with the Chair of Public Works regarding the option of leasing to own, should it be council's wish. Currently, we do have a purchase agreement. And I did discuss with Brant Tractor the option of leasing to own, should council have a change of heart. Keeping in mind, council did approve the tendering for a new loader, and so as the CAO stated, there was no ill intention. We were simply trying to move the municipality forward.
Yeah, we did get creative though. We'll acknowledge that in order to be able to satisfy the needs that loader provides. And so what we did is a temporary setup until this could be ratified.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking this clarification, because in my mindset, we had an issue of not being able to award the work for a bridge until council would be at the table to ratify and vote on a resolution. And I'm seeing no, yes, that was the case.
Right.
The contractor was not given the contract until council was at the table and voted on the resolution. So what is the difference between knowingly that council had the will to replace the equipment, but it's not council that voted on the resolution to provide the direction? And I'm not finger pointing here. I'm just trying to have a mindset of procedures.
It's a valid question. The ability of certain suppliers in the world have the ability to entertain different arrangements. When you're entering into very large $1.3 million contracts for major tenders, there's a lot of legalities involved and T's and I's that have to be dotted. And so you can't temporarily award that. So you needed the paperwork from council in that kind of environment. So if you're going to do a big capital project, you can't lease to own lease to own a bridge. And I know that sounds funny, but you can with equipment, chattels, cars, so we all know what financing or leasing is available, but there's like engineering firms and contractors. Belanger was the awarded one. They don't have that. Yeah, trust us, it's in the mail kind of thing. So it's very much more prescriptive and legislative on a tender award.
Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Yvon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I myself have seen what I'm hearing now is I would like to commend the Chair of Public Works and also the Manager of Public Works and also Jay for following through and getting that service, because it's a vital service and it could not wait. It could not wait on council. So they did it, and I got to commend them. Congratulations, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Conseiller Rowley, but you know what, there were other issues that could not be moved forward because there was inaction of council. And I believe what I heard last week is that council has duties to make decision, and staff has responsibilities to adopt the decisions of council. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I brought it up because I think it did warrant discussion. Because it's not staff's fault that we did not have meetings. It's council's fault. And council needed to give direction. Conseiller Lise?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think it should have applied anywhere. Anyway, it might have forced us to at least sit and do things that need to be adopted by us. So it's done deal right now. And so I definitely not going to say more than that. I think it's enough. So I'm not, it was our responsibility, and the quorum was not made by staff. It was made by counselor, and we did not have the quorum too. So, and so it's not the staff fault, but it's also was not, in my mind, the staff responsibility to do it. They should have said, hey, you got to be sitting at least an hour to make that decision because it need to be applied.
Councillor Chris, we have our CEO first. Councillor Chris, if you don't mind.
Just from a point of view of governance, you're right on the acquisition of something. We have no right to acquire, but within our operations, our staff, given spending authorities that they have within their procurement bylaw, regularly take temporary ownership of vehicles in order to satisfy. So let's say different company, but one of our garbage trucks goes down. We regularly will go lease from somewhere else and then possibly convert it to an ownership if we decide that. So it isn't staff's authority to ensure that the operations continue within the realm of their own thing. It isn't in staff's authority to make a final decision and actually purchase the agreement from a final perspective per se. So just to clarify your perspectives, we are within our authority to make expenditures and decisions. Thank you.
Councillor Chris, Councillor Lise.
Well, it's just to continue on that.
Councillor Lise, it's just Councillor Chris first, and then you after.
Sure.
I was just going to mention we've got a long way and it's 8 o'clock, and if we could have a break as soon as we've taken this vote. Thank you.
Councillor Lise.
I didn't understand. I just want to say that you're right about making the decision of leasing because it's not a big amount. But I mean, I don't think you can, well, maybe you can say, maybe I don't think, but are you able to do a $250 expense and without council decision?
A $250,000 expense?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, we have spending authorities. But we're allowed to lease and get into arrangements which are monthly lease arrangements, and get into those kind of agreements based on our needs.
Okay, I understand that, Monsieur Barbeau. But if the lease would be for 20 years and the amount of $500,000, would you be able to lease it without approval of council?
Typically, a lease is a form of purchasing. It's just a financing arrangement, so not really, no.
Okay, no, it's okay. You
No.
can.
Councillor Denis.
Just to clarify, is that brand tractor, was that a lease? Was it leased before coming here tonight, or? That's to Mr. Barbeau.
Sorry, can I defer that to the manager of public works or Elisa, please?
So the agreement is currently set up as a purchase, but the lease to own was discussed with the supplier. So if it's council's wish tonight, we can go back and set it up as a lease agreement and eventually, I guess, abolish the agreement. But I mean, there's terms to agreements, and we'd have to follow the terms. But it is an option that was discussed and was also discussed with the chair of Public Works.
So to answer the question, though, right now, the issue of how to acquire this on a permanent basis, which is what's before you now, is typically a financing discussion with the director of corporate services providing advice. We don't typically tend to lease these things. We tend to buy them outright because we have the ability to save the interest on leasing. But because we didn't have an agreement, we entered into a short-term leasing thing so we can actually remove snow. And then we are now going to formalize the purchase of it. And if council wishes to change the format of how we want to do that, then I would ask Elisa to comment whether she would agree. But Elisa handles the financing of how things move around in the organization to ensure that we maximize. So Elisa, do you want to comment on that?
But I don't believe that's what I'm hearing from members of council. And I think if I were to summarize it correctly, is what I'm hearing right now is that staff made arrangements with the supplier to lease the equipment until council ratifies by resolution to purchase it. And I think that's the whole issue. And I think it's just clarity on yes and no, so we can understand. So would that be the actual situation? C'est ça que je veux savoir. Puis je crois, c'est ça qui est demandé par certains membres. Est-ce que c'est des arrangements qui ont été faits avec le contracteur, la compagnie, pour avoir l'équipement dans notre cours sous forme de bail ou de frais de location et par après acheter l'équipement? Est-ce que ça, c'est bien?
C'est ça ma compréhension. C'est un arrangement temporaire et le versement total pour l'achat va être fait après la résolution soit approuvée ce soir. So it's a temporary arrangement so that we can provide service. We said, listen, we don't have an agreement. Could we lease it short term until that decision is made and then we're moving forward?
Okay. Are there further comments or questions?
No.
Any objections? Aucune objection? Carried, adopté.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a break, please? It's 8 o'clock. It's
Okay, there's, so you're proposing a resolution for
a break.
a break, seconded by Councilor Chris. I'll ask our clerk to provide the resolution.
You're on mute.
Did I hear motion by Councillor Lees and seconded by Councillor Chris?
Yes.
It is moved by Councillor Lees and McCown, seconded by Councillor Chris Fisher. At approximately 8:05 p.m., motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess, following which council will continue.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Those in favor? Okay, carried. So 15-minute recess.
Thank you.
Hey, Alan, your mic's on.
Okay, so according to the time where the recess started, it was 20:07. And now we are 20:21, so that would be our 15 minutes. So we are ready to resume.
We're not on, John.
On what?
Sorry about that. Okay, so we have quorum to be able to proceed. We are up to E6, the awarded tender for replacement dehumidifier at the West Nipissing Community and Recreational Complex. A mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Millet. Whereas quotations were requested for the replacement of the dehumidifier at the West Nipissing Community and Recreation Centre were opened on November the 4th, 2021. And whereas 2 quotations were received, and whereas the quotations have been reviewed by the Director of Economic Development and Community Services and the Project Manager of Community Services, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best price meeting all specifications. And whereas Council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the quotation for the replacement of the dehumidifier at the West Nipissing Community and Recreation Centre be awarded to Metal Air Limited, having submitted a quotation of $308,445 plus harmonized sales tax, meeting all specifications.
Any questions or comments from members of council? Conseiller Lise.
Well, it's not a comment or question, it's just a request. Maybe I would like to know, how many contractor I think I can know they're not from West Nipissing, but I guess I can know because just I don't recognize the name, but there were no supplier in West Nipissing. I can imagine for that. Thank you, Monsieur Poulin.
Okay.
I agree.
I have 2 questions. What was the set budget that we had approved for the replacement of said equipment?
So through you, Madam Mayor, initially we had included an amount to budget as per the capital 2021 budget for community services. That amount was removed by council because we were expecting a grant contribution. The grant contribution, as you can see, as per the memo, is $118,000 less. We will not be getting any additional grant money for this project. So the $118,000 has to come out of the capital or the community services capital reserve. And we do have that amount in there to cover those costs.
Okay, and subsequent to that, the actual work, is the actual work going to be done as soon as the award is done, or is that being deferred to a later date pending on whatever other factors?
So obviously the unit itself was not ordered until the contract has been awarded by the municipality. So once that's done, the contractor will order the unit. We do not have firm timelines as to when the unit will be in and when the work will be able to be completed.
Okay, so based on the request, it's to award the tender and that the award of the tender exceeds the allocated funds for this acquisition of this equipment, and that the funds will be will be removed from the actual current reserve of community services.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions to it? Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Mover and seconder for the winter maintenance and agreements for private roads. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing has received private road winter maintenance agreements for certain roads within the municipality, and whereas the roads in question have been duly inspected and identified as meeting the municipality standards for maintenance, be it resolved that the mayor and chief administrative officer are authorized to sign the 2021-2022 private winter road maintenance agreements with residents of the following roads: Alfred Road, Argo Road, Pellerin Road, White Road, Franks Lane, and Saint Jean Road.
Any questions or comments? Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Lise.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, these are the same roads that we've approved every year for the last, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, that those are the same roads.
Pretty well, yeah, but you'll have to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I support the motion.
Councillor Elise?
Well, I would, just my question were well, we do not have much snow, but I mean, how did they did, because it didn't meet, like it's been for a while now, so.
We, through you, your worship, we did continue as if the agreements were in place, given that the policy talks more about making sure that the manager of public works and the staff there vet and reapprove the roads suitable for service. We just waited, not knowing when it could be, but we certainly did not want to deprive the residents of service. So we waited for that. We ensured that our insurance was fine and our liability was fine.
Sorry. Are there any other questions or comments?
No.
I do, I want to thank Councillor Elise for bringing up that issue, because I understand that we do have a policy. Even though that we've been doing the maintenance, it was never conveyed to members of council that with inaction of meetings, that really this decision was a council decision, and it wasn't conveyed in that way to members of council. Conseil Dan?
Well, I think that it's with the public's best interest to have it done. And I think the people that live on those roads would appreciate what our staff did. And I'd like to commend what they did, because the thing is, nobody wanted to be in a non-safe environment. And this is basically a way to be done. So I think it was in the public's best interest. And thank you for taking the lead on that.
Conseil Rowley?
I'd like to echo exactly what Dan just said. The municipality, I guess, was between a rock and a hard place, and they did what was best for the constituents, which was always approved. So I commend you guys. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. Thank you.
I'm not, and I just want to set the record straight, I'm not contesting the fact of not wanting to do the best we can for our residents by staff. And I want that on record. But when policies are set by council and decisions are to be done by council, what I'm highlighting is when it was conveyed to the public that we were not conducting meetings, we were putting in jeopardy contracts that needed to be awarded by council. And this decision lied with council. Conseil Elise?
Well, on the same vein, yes, I agree that, I mean, we're talking about things that we could have been called or do the same as the bridge or whatever, lease or whatever. And I understand the safety, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of residents, and I can name a few on the item that's been waiting for a few weeks, few meetings, and few months. And so we're telling a resident that, okay, there's something that's more important. And I agree for the safety. Safety is very important in my mind. But look how delayed that it was for Dovercourt Road when it's a safety issue, and that it won't be able to be done this winter. So again, it comes back not to the staff. It comes back to councillors that we didn't do our job. That's it. So, I mean, there's no argument. It's done. What do you want to do? Disapprove and not do it for the rest of the winter? No, but I mean, it needs to be duly noted that we did not pay as a councillor for the result of the behavior. It's the resident. And then commend staff for doing it, whatever, but the fact remained that staff did something that they did it in good faith. I have no doubt about that. But really, they needed approbation from council. That's the way it works. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. So, I mean, commend. I'm definitely not commending council for doing their job in the last few months. And when I say council, I'm involving myself. So
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elise. It's just I firmly believe that if members of council knew that issues required decisions by council that would affect services to residents, it may have prompted council to come back to the table sooner.
Yeah.
And
Or the
I'm
motion
only
removed, or the motion removed.
No,
No.
Councillor, I'm stating, Councillor Rowley, when I was
You could
hearing,
have asked the remove the
Councillor
council. the meeting.
Elise, I'm
Oh.
stating that on record, when information was disseminated to the public, it was not disseminated to council that you are affecting decisions that should be taken by council. And the public did not see that difference because decisions were done on our behalf. And I'm not arguing the interest and the will of why. I'm putting on record who had the decision-making authority. So I'm coming back to this resolution. Conseil Dan?
Mayor, I just find that you're lecturing the table and that you're not being fair in your assessment. You seem to say that you're blaming that the fact that we didn't meet. These things were on the table. Everybody knew they were on the table. It was up to us to come back to the table. And regardless on what side of the fence you are, whose fault it was, and as Councillor Lee said, it was all our problem and it was all our fault that we didn't meet for the meetings. So I still commend staff for taking it upon themselves to do the right thing for the safety of people.
Okay, and you are.
No, can I,
entitled to your
Madam Mayor? I think I'm next.
Councillor, yes.
Okay, well, on the same page, Conseiller Dan, whatever you want to try to say, I did. Conseiller Yvon reach out to all of you, ready to put a motion on the table to remove the motion. I tried the same thing, so don't give me that.
Councillor, we are not
That
dealing with
no, don't give me that. Sorry.
No, Councillor,
That motion's been removed. Point of order.
Councillor Rowley,
Yeah, I
please.
finished.
We are done. We're not dealing with the motion. We're dealing with agreements to do the winter maintenance of private roads that are not owned by the municipality. And what I'm just saying is that the decision to maintain those private roads is a decision of council. And if all members of council were told that the roads would not be maintained without your approval, maybe, and I just say maybe, that could have influenced your actions, of everyone's action of being at the table. And it was stated before, council has decision-making pertaining to policies and staff adopts policies approved by council. So I'm not contesting the will. In a way, you know what? It would have been unfortunate for these residents to have been affected because there was snow on the ground. Conseiller Dan?
I want to conclude this by saying everyone on council knew this impasse had an impact on conducting the business of the corporation. So we must share this. We must share this as a whole, and there's no blame on either side. Councillor Lees, you're laughing at me.
No, I'm not laughing at you. Don't put words in my mouth.
If you are, on November 16th, I brought this up.
Here we go.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, we're off topic here.
You never provided my.
Point of order. So Revita, you're
Okay,
out of
there's a
order.
point of order, and I'm going to rule on the point of order, and I want a clarification on point of order. Is the violation because we're getting off topic pertaining to the winter maintenance agreements?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and we need to focus on the winter maintenance agreement. The point was stated that it was a council decision. We all knew that it needed a council decision. We all stated, or some stated, yes, fine, staff did it out of goodwill, but there has to be a distinction between who has the authority to make those decisions. And if that would be the case, why am I sitting here to make decisions if decisions can be done when I'm not here?
Good question.
So
God.
Anyway, and
Madam
I
Mayor,
did,
that's completely a lack of respect from some councillor, and will it stop? At least can we say our point of view and be
you know
respectful
what,
without
let's,
putting down people?
I totally agree. I totally agree, Conseil Elise. And I do know that there's a lot of eyes that are watching these meetings and there's a lot of public perception that can make that assessment. So I'm going to get back to the resolution. We had a mover, we had a seconder. We're going to call it to a vote. Conseil,
Madam Mayor, sorry, I had my.
yeah, I was just
Can I
going
ask
to say,
can I ask a question, please?
Conseil Chris, yes, but I want to ask you the question. Is it pertaining to the agreement?
Yes, it is actually.
Okay, perfect.
So I noticed that, you know, these are the same roads and we do enter into these agreements and we have a policy in place. So I'm just wondering, and I guess this question is for the CAO and maybe and for my explanation. So wouldn't it not make more sense that these become rolling agreements and council doesn't approve them every year, and rather we would deal with additions or subtractions to this set of roads? Would that not make more sense? Or you know, thank you.
Well, I can say if we want to review the policy, and I'll ask our CEO if that would be correct. If we want to discuss the policy on how these are to be handled and managed, that policy can come back to the table as a subject matter on its own, and council can review it and give direction to staff of any proposed changes. Would that be correct? Asking our CEO?
Of course, that's kind of obvious. Absolutely, Madam Mayor. Yeah, for sure. The issue, I would add, you know, I suppose it could be rolling that way. The originally, when this was developed, there was an understanding that the roads were inspected every year, and there's a process every year to go through, and that's why we don't just roll over agreements. And again, it's an agreement that's signed at council. So the mayor is accurate in her comments that this is a council agreement, so you know, I made that call. Knowing that I didn't have really the authority to, but knowing the impact it could have on the residents and the operations that we have. And so, you know, sometimes or in the past, and I'm not going to throw it, but when there's trust, you know, in my 20 years, there's a lot of things I have to take and make decisions on a fairly short-term basis, and I would like to take them to council and do probably 99.9% of the time. But as Councillor Sénécal-Lise has indicated, you know, we appreciate that, you know, we were trying to manage in very difficult times, and you know, this is one decision that you know, that I did take, thinking that that's what council would want anyway. If council didn't want it, then I would not do it. But yes, technically it's a violation.
Madam Mayor? One last comment?
Conseil Elise?
Well, you know what, Jay, I do agree with you, but could you answer one question? Do you ever had a council like you have right now?
Oh, that's
well,
okay.
you don't have to answer. Thank you. Thank you.
No, I did.
I'm taking my responsibility as a councillor.
Okay. And
Thank
I'm
you.
getting back.
Call
to
of order.
I'm getting back to the subject matter of the resolution. Conseil Dan.
On it.
You call me on whatever you want.
Your point of order is we're getting off subject matter. We're getting back strictly to the subject matter of this resolution. And I'm going to ask the clerk. We did have a mover and a seconder, right?
We did.
Okay. So if there's no further questions pertaining to the actual resolution, hearing none. Any objections? Hearing none. Carried, adopted. Now we need a mover and a seconder to authorize the sale of land in the town of Cashby. Conseil Yvon, Conseil Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Whereas at a meeting held on June the 22nd, 2021, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality recommended that certain municipal landlocked property located in the town of Cache Bay be disposed of by way of public tender. And whereas the lands legally described as part of Lot 219, Plan 40, Springer Township, being PIN number 490700086, municipal roll number 4852-050-000-17510 in the West Nipissing Municipality, must first be declared surplus by the corporation. Be it therefore resolved that part of Lot 219, Plan 40, Springer Township, being PIN number 490700086, in the municipality of West Nipissing is hereby declared surplus.
Any questions? Any objections? Aucune objection. Hearing none, carried, adopted. The next resolution to award a tender for engineering design, rehabilitation of Champlain Bridge.
Another one there, madam.
Missed one.
Oh, sorry.
That's E9.
Okay, so, sorry, we move on to E9, the sale of land.
Yeah.
Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duham and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-06, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to authorize the sale of land in the town of Cache Bay shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopted. Mover and a seconder for the tender for engineering design. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duham and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Whereas requests for proposal for engineering services for the rehabilitation of the Champlain Bridge were opened on December the 1st, 2021 by the Director of Corporate Services, and whereas 6 proposals were received, and whereas the proposals have been reviewed and evaluated by the municipal engineering consultant, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best rating score meeting all specifications, and whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the proposal for engineering services for the rehabilitation of the Champlain Bridge in the West Nipissing Municipality be awarded to EXP Services, Inc., having received the highest rating score meeting all specifications.
Okay, I do know that we had received info, and I'm just going to ask if staff can provide us with a quick overview, understanding of exactly what's being proposed as far as the award of tender. I believe probably Mr. Carell is amongst us to be able to update us, if that is correct.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
You hear me fine? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, we had 6 tenders and we awarded it, looked at it, and we were recommending EXP. They were also the ones that did the work in 2020 for the evaluation of the bridge. And basically what is going to be happening now is we received 90% funding from MTO to start to do the detailed engineering of the bridge, which will require a lot of work on the substructure with the structural steel. A lot of it will have to be sandblasted and re-welded. And then on the top part of the bridge, we're going to have a new deck, a new sidewalk, that sort of thing. We'll see if we can widen out the lanes a little bit to give it a little bit more room because it's a little undersized. But in general, yeah, it'll be it's about $130,000 worth of engineering. And then once the engineering design is ready, then we'll look at tendering the job to be done. It won't be this year. Right now we have an agreement that all the work for the design will be done in 2022. And then we'll look to make an application to the province for their share, the 90% share, to get the work done, hopefully in 2023. Probably, my guess, the estimate is the cost of the work itself, it'll be $3 or $4 million for that work. So that's something we wouldn't be doing on our own. As I said, this is Highway 17 through West Nipissing, and we're eligible for 90% funding, and we'll make those applications once the design has been done, and the design will be double checked through MTO as their practice. All the work we did in 2020 for the research on the deck and the structural steel went to MTO for their review also, and we'll do the same thing here.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any members that do have questions. Conseil Leo, Conseil Burley, Conseil Dan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to Alan. Will we have a detour on Cafe Road or not?
No. Right now it's a 4-lane structure. We did a similar job in 1991 on that thing, and what you do is we've set it up that it's going to be 1 lane in each direction during the part. So you'll get rid of half the deck before, put the traffic on the other side, and then do the other half after. So there'll always be 1 lane each direction. Cache Bay Road wouldn't be able to take it. We'd have a real mess in town if we tried to get Highway 7 through there.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Conseil Burley.
Thank you, Ramon. Question to Mr. Carell. You were talking about widening the lanes. Would that include also widening the sidewalk? Because we seem to be having issues with sidewalks for the accessibility when we're seeing an increase in those wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs and buggies. And if the sidewalk is not quite wide enough, it causes problems to the resident.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the things we're going to look at. We want to make sure that we wouldn't be decreased. Right now, there's a sidewalk in each. We want a sidewalk on each side, and we want to make sure that doesn't go down. I would envision that the side toward the railway tracks, we should be able to extend the sidewalk a little bit in that direction and just have to do the supports a little differently. But that's one of the things we want to make sure that we have a good sidewalk on each side. And the other issue is right now, I don't know if you realize it, but I said in the wintertime, especially for plowing and for the splashing with the water and that sort of thing, it is a problem for pedestrians. And we might be trying to put a little bit of a wall in between the sidewalk and the road on the one side, so that at least we can make it a little safer for pedestrians and they won't get splashed and that sort of thing.
Good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That does make sense.
Conseil Dan.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So Alan, you estimate the total cost of the project is going to be 3 to 4 million, of which that's going to be for the total for fixing it up, your estimate for fixing the bridge itself?
Yeah, that's my guess. It depends exactly on what we do with the sidewalks and that sort of thing. And we'll get, that'll be part of the discussions when we're doing the engineering, just they'll have to, and that's my personal guess, but it might be a little more, it might be a little less, but basically it'll certainly be in that range. It's not, to replace the whole bridge itself is around, we talked to MTO about that, and I think it was $10, $11 million. So it's a lot less to actually rehabilitate it. And also the problem with replacing the bridge is where do you put the traffic, right? Because you can't take it down. You'd have to put another bridge beside it, and it's pretty narrow spot to try to do anything. So I think
supplemental. Thank you, Alan. Supplemental to that, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Are you proceed?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. Okay.
Yes.
Alan, you're definitely correct on the fact that the bridge on the side that's facing the power dams, many times pedestrians can't even pass on there when there's a snow plow or there's snow. Because what happens is the snow plows pass, they throw all the snow on the sidewalk, and it's impossible for pedestrians to walk. And I hope that'll be part of the design to make sure that is remedied, because I know for a fact that there's been one individual nearly got hit because they had to come off the bridge, off the sidewalk, and nearly got hit by an incoming car. And,
yeah, I realize that's a problem too. That's why I was suggesting we might have an extra sort of barrier there for the pedestrians, so that the snow wouldn't be able to go across and they'd be protected. So I think that's one of the things we want to look at for sure.
What is the solution?
What?
Is there a solution now for that?
Well, I know before in the past, we just try to get clean more often, I guess, but that's why I said you need an actual physical barrier if you want to actually protect them. It's pretty hard without one.
Okay, thank you.
Conseil Yvon?
Merci, Madame Maris. So Alan, if you don't mind to you, Madame Maris, Alan, the pre-engineering indicated that the structure itself was sound enough to look at the possibilities of doing what you've suggested, the widening of the road and whatnot. So we're safe to say that the pre-engineering or what we looked at this last year, that the structural itself is sound enough to do work as what you're suggesting.
Yeah, well, the reports that were quite detailed and basically I think there's probably about 30% of the welds underneath that have to be addressed.
Okay.
And then on the top there's going to be a complete deck replacement because otherwise we had a lot of concrete falling and that sort of thing. So, but they did say it can be done, and MTO's looked at it too, and they've concurred that we don't have to replace the bridge; we can repair it.
Thank you.
Conseil Chris?
Sorry, this might have been said and I just missed it, but in terms of the work, is that 2022 work, the actual physical work on the bridge, or is that 2023 work?
2023. We have funding right now from the province for the detailed engineering design, but we don't have funding yet to actually rehabilitate the bridge.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Mr. Carell. Do we have a timeline of when the design is going to be completed by?
Well, the province says we have to complete it in 2022.
Okay, but with the actual award of the tender?
Oh, the EXP, I think they were talking about by September.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Aucune question additionnelle? Hearing none. Any objections? Hearing none. Carried. Adopted. Okay, we move on to E11, to accept assumed dedicated land. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Chris. Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-07, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of the south half of the west half of Lot 5, Concession 2, and part of the south half of the east half of Lot 5, Concession 2, Parts 3 and 4, Plan 36R14590 in the geographic township of McPherson, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin Lafrenière Road in Vernon.
Okay, and just a quick point of clarification, Mélanie. This resolution and the two following one have to do with land transactions that took place in that area, and this is just a formality to do the cleanup like we normally do.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions pertaining to the resolution? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried. Mover and seconder for the same type of resolution, but for a different location. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-08, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of the north half of Lot 10, Concession 2, Parts 4, 5, and 6 on Plan 36R14662, Township Springer, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin La Claire and Chemin Stewart in Cache Bay.
Any questions? Aucune question? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopted. Same type of resolution, different location again. Mover and a seconder, Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Denis.
Il est proposé par Conseiller Fisher, appuyé par Conseiller Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-09, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of the east half of Broken Lot 5, Concession 5, Part 3, Plan 36R 14629, Township Kirkpatrick, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin Deer Lake Road, Warren.
Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder to authorize the signing of a mutual agreement drain. Conseiller Denis. Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denis Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the mayor and the municipal clerk be authorized to sign a mutual agreement drain under sections 2 and 65 of the Drainage Act with Raymond Pellerin.
Are there any questions or comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder for a resolution to transfer the senior separate fund of 2021 to a reserve for a 2022 event. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Denis.
Moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denis Senecal. Whereas at the October 19th meeting, council recommended not to proceed with the annual senior Christmas supper, given current restrictions for indoor gathering due to ongoing COVID pandemic. And whereas council recommended to transfer the budgeted funds allocated for the 2021 senior Christmas supper to a reserve to be used for a future event once gathering restrictions have been lifted by the province of Ontario. Be it therefore resolved, the council authorizes the transfer of $7,200 from the 2021 municipal budget to a dedicated reserve for a future event.
Are there any questions, comments, any objections? Aucune objection? None? Adopté, carried. The next resolution to approve the signing of a housing agreement with the District of Nipissing Social Services Agency Board. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Lise. Conseiller Dan.
It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Rivita. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-10 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a municipal housing facilities agreement between the Corporation of the West Nipissing Municipality, the District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board, and 505-3523 Ontario Inc. shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Question, where is the location of this housing?
It's the old hospital building.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it is changing ownership and they had an agreement with DSAB. Therefore, we are approving or renewing that agreement with the new ownership.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
No.
None? Any objections? Hearing none, carried, adopted. Resolution for engineering services for the rehabilitation of John Street. A mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon. Conseiller Léo.
Il est proposé par Conseiller Duhaime, appuyé par Conseiller Marette, where requests for proposal for engineering designs for the rehabilitation of John Street were opened on December the 16th, 2021 by the Director of Corporate Services. And whereas 7 proposals were received, and whereas the proposals have been reviewed by the municipal engineering consultant and the award being recommended herein consists of the best price meeting all specifications, and whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the proposal for engineering design for the rehabilitation of John Street in the West Nipissing Municipality be awarded to EXP Services Inc., having received the highest rating score meeting all the specifications.
Okay. Here again, Mr. Carrell, do you have an update pertaining to this tender for the design, just to refresh everyone's memory?
Yes, we put out the request for proposal for engineering services. It's to redo John Street from Coursol to Nipissing. Basically, we're only there is already existing storm sewer on, but we know we're going to have to put some extra catch basins in a few places. But the rest of the work is essentially the road itself, the top 24 inches or so. And basically we're looking at a 3-lane section, curb and gutter on each side, and redoing it. The total cost is just under $50,000 for the engineering, and EXP was the actual lowest bidder and also got the best score, and they've done a lot of work for us. They did Michaud Street from John to Burgo is one of the last ones they did in a similar thing. And the work itself, I think we told them that it had to be ready for May. So if we wanted to go to tender this year, we'd be able to go to tender and hopefully award it if the money's in the budget by end of June, so that the work could be done this year. And it's, as I said, it's not a huge project, but it's a fairly nice one to get done, because I don't think John Street has been done forever. So yeah.
That's right. And just a point of clarification, Mr. Carrell, we're looking at one of the main purpose of the design is also addressing the issue of the catch basins, like looking underground to see if there's any other remedial that needs to be addressed pertaining to the water.
Yeah, well, the water itself, where we're not looking at extending the size of the water main in that direction. That was the other direction from Nipissing down the other way. That's where we're looking at the part of that looping project, because we have the 16-inch water line on John Street. So we don't really have to look at the water in this one. This one is basically a drainage issue, and there is some substandard catch basins almost mid-block from Nipissing all the way down to Cursal that has to be addressed, and we really need to do a barrier curves, put a curb and gutter in there so we can catch the water properly, and that sort of issue.
With the design, is there a proposed sidewalk on the side where there's no sidewalk on John Street?
Right now, what we're proposing is the sidewalk can be only on the one side, but it's all the way down to Cursal.
Okay. And that would be a budget deliberation discussion at that time to see what council would want or not want, right?
That's right. We're trying to get the engineering design done as
Okay.
quick as we can, so that if you council so wishes, it can be done this year.
Okay, perfect. Are there further questions or comments? Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Lise, Conseiller Yvon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Alan, the project is from Cursal, and I think I missed where you said it was going to stop. Does it go right to the bridge?
To Nipissing Street.
Oh, just to Nipissing?
Yeah, for this one, we have other projects we're looking at, like the water main looping one. We're looking at a few blocks on John Street also, but from to King Street and then down King and that sort of thing. But this part from Nipissing to Cursal is essentially just the road, because it's the road that needs to be done. The other section of John Street toward the John Street bridges, there's a lot more work involved, and that, we put the application in for funding for a few $1 million to do some work in that area. But this is the road work itself, only the road work on that section from Nipissing to Cursal.
And is the part from Nipissing to the bridge? You've done your engineering studies and on that already.
Well, the engineering studies from because we're talking about the water main loop from Ethel and Nipissing down Ethel and up King, and then down John to the bridges. That's you've awarded that tender already for the engineering, and we're working on it. We actually had a meeting on it today. But
so in that process, you're still going to do the road itself.
Oh, on the in the other project, yeah. When you're putting a 12-inch water line down the middle of the road, you're going to be losing the road, so it'll be redone then. Yes.
Good.
But the other section of John that we're talking about, we're not doing anything other than catch basins, curb gutter, and repaving, and
So basically, all I'm asking is, for the residents that live on John Street, eventually within a couple of years, you're going to have a new road from Cursal right to Nipissing, right to the bridge.
Well,
Yep.
they're gonna have a new road if council approves it in this budget, so it's hopeful that they can have that section done and completed in 2022, right?
Yeah, just that section from Nipissing to Kersall.
That's right. Okay.
Great.
Conseil
you.
Yvon, Conseil Alice,
Okay, I just wanted to mention, Madame Mayoress, and I'm glad you brought the issue up with respect to the sidewalk, and I assume would be on the south end. And this is something to me was very important because there was no sidewalks in that area, and I would greatly appreciate if it was looked at, and I'm glad you brought the subject matter up. And it's gonna be finally get John Street done somewhat and continue from there. Thank you very much, Alan Carell, for the update.
okay, question to staff, the issue of the sidewalk on the south side, can that be discussed at the future Public Works Committee meeting, or do we have to wait till budget deliberation?
Well, the sidewalk is part of the design of this project from Nipissing to Kersall. We have it right now to Clark, and we're hoping to bring it all the way to the to Kersall. So it'll be designed that way. As far as construction, that'll be that's part of your budget procedures. Yes.
Okay,
Right.
okay, so we're gonna wait till budget to have that discussion.
Yes.
Does everyone agree to that? Wait for budget? Okay, Conseil Alice,
Well, I just want to know because I'm trying to find because we did pass the sheet before the engineering report that we approved for the one on the highway, Champlain Bridge.
Yeah.
What is the difference, Mr. Carell? Because I cannot find, I know this one is 199,500, but what is the other one? What is
Well, how much was it, you mean?
yeah, for the
The-
Champlain?
The Champlain Bridge is like 150,000. This one is 49,000
Okay, but.
for the engineering.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, this is just design. It's not the reconstruction.
Yeah, but it's, okay, I thought I'm seeing it here for a municipality where upgrade okay, not the same thing. Thank you.
Okay,
It's just the design.
Yeah.
Okay,
any objections, aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. Thank you for the update, greatly appreciated. We move on to the tender for accessibility upgrades to various municipal buildings. Mover and a seconder. Conseil Yvon, Conseil Rowe,
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas requests for quotations were requested for accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities, ADOA, upgrades to various municipal buildings were opened on December the 17th, 2021. And whereas 3 quotations were received, and whereas the quotations have been reviewed by Perry & Perry Architects Inc. and the award being recommended herein consists of the best price meeting all of the required specifications. And whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the quotation for accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, ADOA, AODA upgrades to various municipal buildings be awarded to Prosperity Co. Ltd., having submitted a quotation of $199,500 plus HST, meeting all required specifications.
are there any questions or comments? Conseil Alice,
well, I just want to know if it was part of the budget, the 221 budget.
I'll pass it on to our Director of Corporate Services and Community, Director of Community Services, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was part of the 2021 capital budget. However, we had budgeted 170,000 for the work to be completed. The bid price came in at 199.5, similar to the project that council's just approved with the dehumidifier at the complex. We would need to take 29,500 from the Community Services Capital Reserve to cover the additional cost of this project.
And the money is there.
Yes, we do have it in our reserve, yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a timeline with the contractor pertaining to the completion of the actual work?
Again, Madam Mayor, we don't. Once the contract's awarded, the timelines will be revised from what they originally provided to us, but we anticipate the work to be able to start soon.
Okay. Conseil Alice, Conseil.
Just, I want to make the request, Madam Mayor, after this, can I go and take 2 minutes, please?
Yes, you may.
I'll wait for the vote.
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna have to change my technology. My battery's running out, so on my iPad, so I'll be coming on my phone, so I'll be doing that right away too.
Okay,
Well,
but I'm just, before proceeding with the vote, I'm gonna ask Conseil Rowley if he had comments or questions so he can proceed.
Yes, I guess it's a comment or a question to Steph, Monsieur Poulain. On the OADA, I was under the impression that we had approved on our budget a total of 240,000 on our projects this year.
No, we had approved, the total was 170,000 for AODA work. That was the final number that was approved by council in 2021. Part of that is some structural work that's also required to be done at the Cache Bay Community Center. So we included that as part of the tender, the tender package for the scope of work, but we did approve money at the West Nipissing Recreation Center, the Vernon Arena, the Cache Bay Community Center, and the Vernon Municipal Building as well. But Councillor, total amount was 170.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, so hearing none, it means that the resolution is carried. Okay. The next resolution is the appointment of deputy mayor. I'll ask, a mover and a seconder for the resolution. Conseil Chris, Conseil Denis.
I don't have a name, your worship.
Oh, okay, my apologies. The recommendation by the mayor is appointing Conseil Van Duheim as deputy mayor for the remainder of the year of our term for the year 2022. And their procedures do identify that the mayor has the prerogative of defining who the deputy mayor is. So I need a mover and a seconder. You got it?
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that Councillor Yvonne Duhaime be appointed deputy mayor for the corporation of the West Nipissing municipality for a one-year term ending on December 31st, 2022.
Okay. Just a quick point of clarification. It's not December 31st.
No, it's actually, I think.
It'll be up to the end of our term, which I believe will be November. If someone does know the precise date. Is it November 4th? December 16th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's the last date for a new council to be formed.
November 15th.
No, December the 16th.
Oh.
So
November is the first date that a new term of office can commence, but a meeting has to be held by December the 16th. So I'll use the November the 15th, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the new council will have convened its first meeting by that date.
Okay, so it means that the term of office for this council and for the appointment of deputy mayor is up to November 15th, 2022.
Yeah.
And after that falls, with a new council. Okay, that's clarified. Conseil Dan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been discussing procedures and policies all night, who met and who didn't meet. Can you just provide us with an idea on what criteria you based your decision on recommending Councillor Duhaime as deputy mayor?
Certainly, with pleasure. As done in the past, definitely an individual that you can communicate with easily and that will reach out to you as well and also respond to any queries, and also someone that you know that you can work closely with as has always been the template that I've used. And our procedures do state that the appointment of the deputy mayor is based on the recommendation of the mayor. And Conseil Yvon has been able to step up as far as availability when the mayor was not available to attend specific functions or to perform specific duties. Conseil Rowley, Conseil Alice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I tend to disagree with that appointment because I think that appointment should be for a leader. And from the demonstration that I've seen over the holidays, I just cannot support that. Thank you.
You know what, Conseil Rowley?
Madam Mayor,
That's my
I
opinion.
had my hand raised.
I know you have your hand up, but you know what? Here we are attacking an individual versus looking at our policies and our procedures, okay? And let's look at the procedures for the appointment of a deputy mayor.
Does that include preferential treatment?
Conseil Dan, I did not give you the floor. I'm
Oh,
asking
sorry.
the question.
I thought I was
Conseil
on.
Dan,
I am
Conseil
sorry. I thought I
Dan.
was on mute.
I'm looking at the issue of appointment for deputy mayor within our procedures, within our own bylaw. Now, my apologies for taking a little bit of time, but I'm opening it up. If you find it before I do, Mel, please let me know.
Um, 4.4.
Or does speak to appointment of committee chairs, but that's,
There is something that does speak to the appointment of the deputy mayor, and that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, Madam Mayor, I don't know what you're looking for it because at the end of
for-
no, but
for
can I,
Sammy's-
while you're talking about it, can I make a comment? Because it's been done for 3 years, never questioned before. And I personally feel it's a completely lack of respect towards a colleague that been a well-known person on council and achieving a lot of things. I think it's completely unacceptable. Are you okay, Chris?
So,
I
I have
need to
this,
ask that,
I
okay?
have the section. Section
Okay.
27.
Thank you.
Thank you, Conseil Chris. The mayor, in consultation with council, will determine the process for selection of committee, chairs of committee of the whole, and for the position of deputy mayor. The member will respect the final decision of the mayor once the process has been agreed to by the majority of council. And the process has been, and it's not a given secret, that there are some members of council that decline to even respond or communicate with the mayor. And it's critical for the mayor to be able to work hand in hand with a member of council that can step up in the event that I cannot perform my duties or attend specific functions. It's been working great with the working relationship of Conseil Yvon. He's done a phenomenal job for West Nipissing, and he's been flexible and available. So the recommendation that is being brought forward is for the appointment of Conseiller Yvon as deputy mayor, and that's the recommendation of the mayor. Conseiller Dan.
You're on mute.
Madam Mayor, I'm not negating the fact that you have the right to appoint the individual, but in a democratic process, one has the right to question, and that's all that we were doing, and that's why I would base your criteria on, and that is to answer Madame Senecal.
And you know what, Conseiller Dan, you have absolutely the right to ask and to ask questions pertaining to the matter. And what I would just recommend to this council is to start removing from the equation of personalizing the issue. That only stimulates divisiveness, creates additional ill feeling, and it doesn't help in our decision making. If we follow policies and procedures black on white, this way it avoids all of this. And that's my comment pertaining to it. Conseiller Lise, Conseiller.
Well, my
Chris.
last comment, and I, you know what, I know at the beginning that's what you're asked, but I know you thought your thing were closed, but we heard that you said, okay, so preferred treatment, is it part of the criteria? And it was very clear, and that's what I resent. So, and a case is closed. I mean, we have only a couple other things we can do before. Just see, it's 9:22 right now, so.
Okay, thank you, Conseiller Lise, for the warning or the information. Conseiller Chris had his hand up.
So yeah, just reading 27. I you know, it does say in consultation, and we all did approve this bylaw. So effectively, the consultation has taken place, and we've agreed to this process. And it does in fact say that members of council will respect the final decision of the mayor once the process has been agreed to. And so I would actually say it's a fait accompli if we're following the procedure. Really, we don't really need to vote on it according to the way it's written. Thank you.
But we still need a resolution. The fact that it does state that it needs to come back to council, there has to be the approval process through the format of resolution. Conseiller Denis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I think Councillor Yvon will make a great deputy mayor, and I agree with your choice, and I wish that everybody else would, without defaming anybody, and Yvon, you'll do a good job, and congratulations.
So are there any further questions pertaining to the resolution itself brought forward? Conseiller Dan?
Madam Mayor, I hope you weren't insinuating that I was making some negative comments towards Councillor behind, because I didn't. You know, every resolution we have the right to debate it. It's a democratic process. And I think the thing is that all we are doing is debating the issue. And I would look at that being as a positive point and not as a negative point. And I may agree with the process, but I have a hard time with the appointment.
And I just need to qualify with a question back to you, Conseiller Dan. Did I insinuate anything against you of implying that you were personalizing the process? Did I make reference to your name? Or was I speaking? Or was I speaking in general terms to all?
Perhaps you were doing it in general terms, but in the past you have made certain comments.
Thank you. And we're not dealing about the past. We are dealing with this issue. And I was speaking in general terms. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, last comment. No, but I mean, we're talking about leadership. So is it the kind of leadership to say things like Councillor Dan said, was off camera, but too bad we heard it, and now saying that he's debated with the choice? He's talking about a colleague. Just swallow your pill, and if you want to be a leader or a deputy mayor one day, whatever, do it. No, but it's frustrating because it's so degrading.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, Councillor Lise is
Conseiller Dan, I was going to.
No, because it's on video.
Please. Okay.
And who is laughing? You can laugh. Look at us and can laugh at me.
Please. And Conseiller Dan, I stated, we are not to personalize the issue and focus on the matter regarding procedures. And next time, forget the next time. Conseil Denis.
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's a difference between attacking somebody and debating an issue. And I think that Councillor Rowley needs to apologize to Mr. Juhain for his comments. Very, very improper comments against another councillor. Thank you.
Conseil Rowley.
And this, I could tell you, guarantee you, this will not happen. I had an encounter with Mr. No, I'm not done. Wait until I'm done. You keep cutting me off. No. I insist I need to continue my discussion.
Conseil Rowley,
Yes.
you stated that you will not apologize, and that's fine. That is fine.
And I have a comment with this. I have a
The
comment.
comment is
And
based
I will
on
say
the
my comment.
resolution. Thank you.
It is.
Thank
It
you.
is. It is based
So
on
I'm
the
calling
resolution.
the resolution to
And
a
I have
vote.
proof. I have proof on this.
You know what,
This is
Conseil
why I'm
Rowley,
saying it.
you know what, Conseil Rowley, you're being disrespectful, and I'm just trying to us move forward with the decision that council is to make. And as stated from before, we are sticking to the procedures pertaining to the discussion matter before us, and not to start rehashing issues that anyone wants to hash. Sorry, will not be allowed. So if there's no further question, let's vote on the resolution before us. Are there any objections? Aucune objection. One, hearing one, the resolution is carried. And thank you.
That's true. That's true, madam.
Well, Conseil Rowley, you raise your hand after the vote. Either way, it does not change the outcome of the vote. Okay? So I just want to say thank you to Conseil Juhain sitting there and listening to constructive comments or comments that are hurtful and that are not required amongst this table. But congratulations, Conseil Yvon. Do you have anything to add? We've been talking about you for the last 10 minutes.
No kidding. I have to laugh because it's not something I would do. But anyway, Madam Metis, I thank you for the appointment, and I'll try to fulfill my duties in your absence as much as I can, in the best ability I have. But I do like to make a comment, if I don't mind, with respect to what was said from Mr. Larrabee, if you wish me to.
Is that regarding the procedure or the resolution that we just appointed?
It's just a remark he made with respect that I didn't want to call a special meeting when I was very adamant with him that I had a motion on the floor that would have removed the issue.
I'm going to have to stop that discussion because the issue of the past, we are not dealing with that.
Okay.
The issue that we're dealing with is the resolution. Now, I see some people looking at their clock and they're giving me an indicator. And unfortunately, I don't have the time in front of me. What time are we at right now? I'll ask our clerk.
9:29.
9:29. So we need a resolution to be able to extend their curfew. Would there be a mover and a seconder? I see Conseil Elise and I see Conseil Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. At approximately 9:29 p.m., a motion was tabled to extend the meeting beyond the regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
I'm going to call it to a vote, and all members of council do realize that we need 2/3 majority to be able to proceed beyond curfew. I'm just providing a reminder. It feels like we haven't been sitting here in ages. So who is in favor of the resolution? I do. So the resolution is defeated. We need a mover and a seconder to be able.
Could we deal with the Legion snow plowing? They might, it's a quick thing.
At this
No?
point, we
Okay.
cannot,
All right.
but feel free to ask the question to our staff to see if the service is actually being provided. So
I need a mover and a seconder.
Yes. I see Conseil Chris, Conseil Elise.
It was moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-16 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality confirming the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 18th of January 2022 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? Hearing none, carried.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on January the 18th, 2022 be adjourned.
Any objections? Hearing none, carried, adopted. So this does conclude our council meeting for this evening. Ceci conclut notre réunion pour ce soir. And unfortunately, our agenda is not completed, so that'll be food for thought for moving forward. But at least, you know what? We were able to deal with some issues and issues that council was all on the same page. Donc, sur cette note, bonsoir.